one from a movie that we all remember seeing. And we thank you. That boy's killing himself over there. Dear gentlefolks of the audience, should I say hats and cats, I'd like for you to lend an ear to some shimmering shorts and flats. These cozy voiciosis, just about the greatest in the trade. They're gonna show you now exactly how, approximately, jazz music is made. Wait a minute, folks, wait a minute there. My makeup's coming off again. They told me it would stick. And now you take some skin. Jazz begin. Take a bass. Now we getting some place. Take a box. The one that rocks. New Orleans horn blown, and it's Drummer Young there. Yeah, take a stick, one with a lick. Take a bone, oh, hold the phone. Take a spot, the one that's hot. Now you have jazz, 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 jazz. Oh, la two-tone song, kind of therapeutic. Now you have jazz, 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 jazz. Joe Daringsburg on the planet. Drummer Young on the drum. Now you have jazz, jazz, Billy Kyle at the piano. Orville Shaw backs him up on the bass. Old face. Now listen to little Danny Barcelona on the drums.
I listen to, well, you know who. Come on down here, Pops. Don't you want to pick up on what's left here, Daddy?
Silly boy. Him. Bing Crosby in Technicolor.
If you sail
Sailing, sailing,
across the sea,
when you're waiting for me.
take my tip, they from both the hip in Italy.
Well, Arrivederci. As for France,
Oh, they dig you there.
yes, believe it or not,
I believe you. Yes, indeed.
the Frenchmen's all prefer what they call a jazz hot boy.
Oh, well, you take a plane.
Oh, Papa says,
Go to Siam. In Bangkok, they rock the clock, they love the jam.
Papa says,
The Indians on
oh, Papa that,
the Amazon.
oh, Papa
They beat one bar, and all of them are.
well gone, man, gone. From the equator up to the pole. Everybody swinging, everybody singing, rock, 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 from the east to the west, out to the coast. Jazz is king, jazz is the thing that folks dig most. But zat, 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 da 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 da, that's jazz.
Hi, everyone. I got one person over there thanking me for playing jazz and another person ridiculing me for playing jazz. So, you vote yes? Yes on the jazz? How many enjoyed that? You're the dumbest one in the room, so I just, I'm actually going to talk a little bit about Louis Armstrong here. First off, let me just hear, what is your favorite style of music? Just yell it out. Metal, classical. You guys are sitting together. That's neighbors. Classic rock. Still, same things. What is it? Anything that's good. Was that good? See? What else? Country music. Okay, modern country music or old school country music? Both? I spent 3 years working at a country radio station. Yeah, worst 3 years of my life. But, so sorry to say that. This, if you don't know, his name is Louis Armstrong. And any genre of popular music that you listen to today, he's the father of. That's true. You talk to any musical expert, I sense the doubt in the room. So the 9:30 service, they don't heckle me as much as the 11 o'clock service does. They do heckle, but just not as much. We're going to get to Louis Armstrong in just a second, but first I want to cover Luke's 21, 1 through 9. Jesus is standing outside of the temple, and he's kind of hanging out, and he's kind of watching people. You ever just watch people? It's one of my favorite things to do. When I first started in comedy, I had a mentor, and she said, before you get into any type of entertainment or character, go to public places and just watch people, because you'll learn more about the human condition than anything in the world. And so it did get me kicked out of the YWCA, but that's a bad joke. He was watching people. He was watching people coming in and out of the temple, and he was talking to people. And he kept noticing a pattern. He kept seeing these really rich people, because you could tell that they were rich because of the clothes that they wore, and they had all the bling and everything like that. Some people came to the temple to more be seen than to actually do any kind of worship or anything. And outside of the temple, there was almost like it was actually almost like a horn. It was like this bass thing, and it went into this thing, and people would put their tithes in, their contribution to the church. And he saw these rich people just taking kind of a few coins, and they would throw it in. But then he saw something that really kind of made him stop and pause. and that was a widow. And now, let me explain the difference between why it's important that the Bible says a widow. Being a woman in the first century was very, very challenging. You were not considered at the same regard as a man. And so every time that Jesus points out something that a woman does, he is being politically radical. He is saying, they matter. And this one did. A widow at this time, if you married somebody, if you had, your family had property, say, and you married somebody, that property now became the property of the person that you married, the guy. If that guy divorced you or passed on, you lost it. That property did not go to you like it would today. Usually, today it would be shared. It would actually go to the man's relatives or family, if he had a brother or something like that. So the fact that this person that Jesus is pointing out is a widow means that she is a person that has lost everything. The only time that a person of her way would, if somebody had pity on her, they might let her stay at the house that she lived in. Otherwise, she was just done. You have no husband now. This isn't yours. Off you go. And so a lot of these folks became quite desolate and poor. They had nothing. They had all of the odds against them. And this is the one that Jesus saw coming up in front of the temple and taking just 2 copper coins, pretty much the equivalent of 2 cents. And she gave it to the church. It was all that she had. And Jesus said, whoa, wait a minute. Just look at her. Because all these rich guys, they're walking in because they feel like they contribute to the church, so the church is partly, they get to, it's their property, and they get there to be seen, and it's kind of a social club for them. It's kind of a private club. I know that doesn't happen in churches today at all, but it's kind of just like their thing there. But he is seeing this person come by here with nothing and giving everything. And he points that out. People with nothing always have something. The world tries to tell us that we have nothing. God is saying you have everything. And when it comes to the relationship that we have with God, God is saying, and everything about you I want. Because everything about you I accept. And everything about you I love. That's really, really important to understand. Back to jazz. Louis Armstrong. He grew up in New Orleans. It was such a violent community that he grew up in. It was commonly known as the battleground. There were constant gunfights. There were constant people getting abused. There were poverty beyond poverty. The kids in Louis Armstrong's neighborhood, including himself, they could not afford shoes. Kids in that era, in the 1920s, walked around barefoot no matter what the temperature was because they could not even afford shoes. Louis Armstrong was born from his mother having a brief encounter, basically, with another guy. And that guy disappeared shortly after Louis was born. The people around him, you had your professions. You were either a prostitute or you were in a gang. That's pretty much it. The odds were against him. He had nothing. I mean, nothing. When they say that they were hungry, that means they did not eat. We often talk about, I feel so poor, I skipped breakfast. For him, that was a week. They had nothing. And so for kids of Louis Armstrong's age, it was either remain like this or join a gang and try to move into the system that way. But Louis Armstrong had everything He just didn't know it yet. When he was 11, he had a stepfather by that time, and at that time, Louis Armstrong had been in some trouble. He had done some things that have been, he was a product of his surroundings. He was doing what he was told he could do. You're in the battleground, you can either be a gang member, you have to be a criminal. That's the only way you're going to make it. And a young kid believes that. 4th of July, when he was 11, he stole his, at the time, stepfather's gun. And to celebrate, he shot it in the air. Well, the cops were called. And Louis Armstrong was taken to an orphanage. It was kind of a correctional thing, but it was kind of like an orphanage where a lot of kids there didn't have parents, didn't know who their parents were, and some of them were there for disciplinary reasons. And some of these during that time were basically holding cells. They were exactly the kind of stuff that you would imagine them to be, dark, dingy places where people were put to work, or it was almost like a slave labor thing. But this one was a little bit different. Louis Armstrong, who had nothing, entered this at 11, and somebody that helped run it was a person that spent his life looking for something in everybody. He tried to discover what it is that you could contribute, what it is about you, because he didn't believe that nobody had nothing. He believed that everybody had something. And part of that was he formed a marching band. And at that time, music was awful. It was, everybody was in sync. It was tunes to march by. There was no creativity in it. I know some music experts are going to argue this with me, but it was really boring. It was stuff even Seth could clap to. It was there that the guy that ran this gave Louis Armstrong a horn. And he started to learn in the band. And he started to get really good at it. And as he got older, he started to lead that band. And he said that one of the most proud moments of his life was that that band, that group of boys, formed a marching band, and they got to march through the battlegrounds. And everybody from every corner came because they were proud of little Louis to see him in this band. The only trouble was that he started to get into good behavior and he started to get good in the band, and so he was released from this home and sent back to his own home, but he couldn't take the trumpet. But he wanted to learn still. At this time, his mother was making a living by the only choice. She was a prostitute. He had no father, and now he had no trumpet. But he still wanted to learn the trumpet. And he befriended this guy. There was this guy in town. So at this time, the music scene was starting to change. And there was another guy there that was called King Oliver, is what he was known as. And King Oliver led this jazz band. And he took little Louis with him. And he started to teach him how to read music and learn sounds. But Louis was learning this with nothing because he still had no horn. He had nothing, but he was learning something. In this neighborhood, the Battlegrounds, it was filled with people of all different nationalities. This was the true America here. But they were the outcasts. Next door to Louis was a Jewish family. And for them, hospitality was a very, very important thing. And they would see little Louis walking around barefoot and feel sorry for him. And they started to make sure that he got fed every day. They brought him into their house. And they gave him some work to do. And with that work that he gave, they gave him a loan so that he could buy a horn that he saw in the window. And so now he had this horn. And now he was with this King Oliver guy, and now he's actually joining King Oliver's band. Time progresses, King Oliver moves to Chicago. Louis is now in charge of this band. And Louis is starting to do something that nobody ever heard before. He was starting to bring his own uniqueness to music. And it threw the music world forever in a different direction. I'm serious. The music that you listen to today is influenced by Louis Armstrong because he started to add who he was. He had nothing, but he started to add who he was, which was something. He did this thing where he would do improvisation. You see, before that, there were no solos. Music was you were a band, and you all, clapped like Seth. You were all just in time. Louis Armstrong started to go, you do that, and I'll do this. And he started to swing. And that's the first time that we ever heard the word swing. He started to add swing to it. And at this time, people were experimenting with being able to record this music. You see, the African-American music was starting to take people by storm. They'd hear it on riverboats and things like that, and he was starting to inspire people, and people were coming to see just him. There were times when he would hit this note that nobody could ever hit because he had so much power in his nothing, but he brought out something. And they started to record him. And for the first time, music of the battlegrounds was being heard all over the world. And then he started to sing. And he had such an amazingly different and unique voice. I mean, people that were used to this were now hearing something that they had never imagined before. At one time, he was recording this song called The Heebie-Jeebies. This is, the late 20s. And as he's recording, he's got his lyrics on a music stand. And he's getting into it because everything was recorded live back then. And the music stand falls over. And he looks over and he sees the owner of the recording studio, and the recording studio is outside the window going, "Keep going. This is costing me money. Keep going." And so Louis starts to just improvise. And he starts to add sounds. And what was known at the time as this completely unusually different thing was now called scatting. Scatting is what led to any type of dialogue music that you have. It is the grandfather of rap and hip-hop now because Louis' music fell off the stand because during a song he lost everything but gave everything. Today, Louis Armstrong, if you talk to anybody that knows anything about music, maybe Will, not Seth, they will tell you that we wouldn't have any of the music that you listen to today. Not your rock and roll, not your country, none of that. The way that it sounds now, if it wasn't for Louis Armstrong. You ever been to a concert and suddenly the music is just going and somebody breaks out into like a guitar solo, like your head banging and stuff, or your, whatever you kids listen to today, and you feel that excitement? Suddenly your adrenaline goes and you see the crowd kind of jump to their feet? That never existed before Louis Armstrong. He was the first person to do that, and he was the first person to record that. A guy that had nothing gave everything. And that's what Jesus was trying to point out. He wasn't trying to point out, and a lot of churches say, they gave a little bit of their money, she gave all of their money, so the lesson here is give all your money. Yeah. But the lesson here is give it all. Give all of who you are. We're growing a church in a time where people that are building church, they want this. Everybody march in the same line. Everybody think the same thing. Nobody fall out of place. Neighbors is building. We're swinging. Because we have individuals here. We have people with different personalities. We have people with different voices, different passions. We have people that have been succeeding in things. We have people that have been failing in things. We have people that are seeking. We have people that are doubting. We have people that are happy. We have people that are angry. Everything that you are is what makes this church what it is. And I believe that's the message 2,000 years ago that Jesus was trying to tell us. To you all, this widow has nothing, but I'm telling you, she has everything. Let her in. What is your passion? What are the things that drive you? What are the things that you fear? What are the things that you have questions about? Whatever they are, bring them. If you have doubts about this whole thing, this church thing, bring it. If you have questions, bring it. We're not marching in a straight line here. We're celebrating creativity. We're celebrating souls. We're jazzing it up. I invite you to continue to be you and to invite others to continue to be them and to bring them here so that we can celebrate everything.